Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome our next guest on our podcast. This is Brad Covington from Forge Construction. Brad, you've been in this business since 2021, but from everything I can see, you've really done well. There's got to be a story here. I love to find guys that have figured it out, become successful entrepreneurs, sometimes family-minded, and you check off all of those boxes. Brad, can you just tell me, how did you get into the construction business? Tell me your story.
Yeah, so I was raised a tradesman. I grew up, my father was in the Navy, and his last duty station was teaching at the University of Oklahoma. And upon retirement, he decided to build a house out in the country of Oklahoma. And as a Navy kid, I was homeschooled. I got to be a part of the entire process of building that home, ground up. And so, that was an old school builder. It was him and his two guys, and they built virtually the whole thing. And, that's just how the old school builders did it. And I got exposure to all of the trades, and I came out to Idaho for college and eventually became a fireman. Ultimately, I've always been in the trades on the side. During 2020, I decided that the lifestyle that I had as a fireman, plus my wife working in a financial environment with a pretty high-paced accounting firm, it was not a very tenable situation. And I was looking at around 2020 of possibly losing my job due to the vaccine mandates as a firefighter.
Wow.
So that was a point at which I just didn't know what was going to happen. And I just said to my wife, hey, how about I make this construction thing official, and you just come work with me, and we'll have something that we can just cheerfully fall back on if we need to. And so that was the start of Forge Construction. The name just harkens into the fact I've been a fireman since 2009. And then previous to that, I was a volunteer in 2005. And, I just felt like I was being forged. People at that time were just being asked to decide. And the willingness to make a decision was kind of a muscle that all of us were having to learn. I started Forge Construction as a firefighter, and I continue to be a firefighter, fortunately.
Wow.
And the real thing that has brought me success in construction is the notion of delegation, span of control, just these paramilitary concepts that I was ingrained with as a firefighter, I just took with me into the trades. Yeah. And that is probably one of the hardest thing that contractors have to learn, is that style of delegation and creating systems that cause the whole thing to flourish without direct interaction.
Good. Is there an example that you can give where you've taken that knowledge from firefighting and applied it into your business that maybe someone may not understand what's meant by kind of a paramilitary approach?
Yeah. So, to expound on the old school, right? You have your old school contract. It's him and it's his buddies that work well together, but in a very direct sense, he has his hands and eyes on the project in a very active role. It's a very hard muscle to grow, in which you fully give away delegation to a maximum amount and say, this is yours. You take ownership of it. I'm giving you free trust. That's a very challenging thing for a builder to do, because you're putting up for collateral your reputation, the promises that you've made to the client. You're really putting yourself out there. But as a fireman, we're really good at it. And the reason we're good at it is we have to do it because it's peak effectiveness. And the stakes are high enough that it requires that of us. And what I think most builders don't understand is when you give away free trust like that, you are building and fostering the greatest aspect of team building that exists, which is trust. If you go to any paramilitary unit, the greatest commodity that they have is their trust in one another. So that's the thing that really caused us to flourish.
Absolutely. And then you're building them. The team, when you're throwing the trust and responsibility to engage in something and get a verifiable end result. And sometimes I always say sometimes a person can do the job 80% as good as you, but it's 100% of the work that you don't have to do. And you can take that extra 20% and make them better. You can invest in their skills or whatever it might be to make them better. But if you're fearful of delegation or micromanage, you stay small, you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you can't even take care of your team, let alone yourself. So that's been a kind of a driving force. Did you come out with that idea from, I don't know if the idea is the right word I want to say, but did you start out with that mindset, or did you fall back to it when you ran into a challenge or something
No,
like
it's
that?
just it's such a default piece of me. Like when you arrive at an incident, it does not matter what level you are. It doesn't matter if you're a bottom step fireman
Hmm.
driving around in your rescue or you're
Hmm.
a battalion chief. Whoever stumbles across or arrives at the incident first,
Hmm.
they are in command and they have the authority to make decisions to make things better. And so that's the attitude that I have with my guys. Anybody can make a decision for the good of the project and get things done. Communication needs to happen. There
Hmm.
needs to be a system by which we communicate what changes are made
Sure.
or what
Sure.
effective shift was decided upon. But ultimately, it's a terrible thing if every single change and decision has to go from the bottom and work its way all the way up the chain of command until the decision maker says that's a good idea, and then it comes all the way back down. The American military is one of the most formidable militaries in the world because they let that happen. They let decisions get made at very low levels. If you go over to Russia or something like that, I'm a big fan of historical tragedies, and I really got into Chernobyl for a while.
Oh,
That was a
oh,
perfect example of where the decision makers at the top were the ones making all of the decisions. And you start playing the telephone game, you're trickling through all of the levels, and communication is always going to have failures. Decisions are always going to get made worse the higher up you go.
yeah.
But me giving away that trust and letting lower level guys understand the mission, understand how we do things as forged construction,
Hmm.
however that applies, whether it's quality, whether it's the system by which we install our trim. All of those things need to be set in stone as an algorithm, and everybody needs to have the same understandings of where we're pulling. And then I don't need to be a part of it after that.
Very good.
There's a problem.
Very good. I'd have to say we kind of skipped a little bit. We didn't talk about all the kinds of work that your company does. So can you give us an idea of the scope of Forged Construction? Then you have Forged Excavation too, two companies, right?
Yes, yes. We started out Forge Construction, and it was me by myself installing trim. So that was the beginning. I had a contact. They knew I did carpentry, and I have a very broad background because of my initial exposure to construction.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ultimately became, as I came out to college, I worked for an excavator who owned properties. And so I would excavate and I would do a whole bunch of property maintenance and remodel and construction. So broad experience, and started with trim. And pretty soon I was still a firefighter and I needed a guy
Yeah.
to keep progress going on the days when I was on shift. And so I hired one guy, soon it was 2 to 3. That was the first year. And then ultimately, my father-in-law, who has been in the building business for 40 years, he had a construction company.
Mm-hmm.
It was a failure back in 2008, and he was recovering from that by driving truck in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
But as we continued to grow at Forge Construction, we had an opportunity for him to come on as a full-time project manager,
Good.
and we started building houses. Shortly thereafter, we had 3 more project managers join our team as we continued to grow. The biggest reason we have grown
Mm-hmm.
is I very much understand the importance of telling the story. So me telling our history is one thing, but just telling the story of what Forged Construction is up to.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much informed by a kind of a micro dirty jobs style of telling the story. I like to hire tradesmen, put them to work, insert them into my team so I can go get more things done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, a fireman. So
Yeah.
the more jobs that keep showing up in my leads, the more resources I continue to need, the more I need to continue to delegate, and the more I need to create systems that cause that delegation to go well.
Very good.
That just keeps continuing. And yeah, eventually we brought on a full-time excavator to keep up with that. And as that continued to grow in its inertia and mass, we split that off into its own company. So we have Forged Construction and we
Mm-hmm.
have Forged Excavation, both branded in a very similar fashion
Right.
and both with a very strong social media presence.
Hmm.
because that's the means by which I can tell the story of my guys the best. So if you check out our YouTube
Yeah.
at Forge Construction LLC, that's a great option to just learn more about what I think of tradesmen.
That's right. My background, Brad, I've told you before, I'm a physical therapist by training, and I built a practice successfully, sold it, started a consulting firm working with business owners in healthcare. And working with people that are in the trades, I find them fascinating. Such a variability of the types of work that you do, environments that you get yourself into, customers that you have to service. I mean, it's pretty much all over the map. And then building a team that you can throw the ball to and have them catch it and run with it is it's not a small skill. And you've been able to do that pretty successfully. Now, if we look at like residential home building and things like that, have you noticed much changes occurring, say, I don't know, since COVID? Like, I wonder if people are interested in more home office build outs than maybe they were before or anything like. Have you noticed any changes in needs or demands on new construction?
Yeah, so one of the bigger things would be the increased, just the inflation of the home, right? There's a lot of buildings and homes being built in my area. So I'm in northern Idaho. Idaho is the fastest growing state in the 50 by population. A lot of the people moving in are coming from California, Oregon, and
Hopefully it
Washington.
gets to stay like Idaho and not like California then.
Yeah, and I
Maybe.
mean, so there's a very strong political aspect to this, and the
Mhm.
people are coming in and they're moving, and we're building homes to service that need. So the market is inflating as it would with a supply issue. So the biggest thing that we're doing innovatively is trying to find cheaper homes that we can build for the people that are priced out of the market. So we've started building what's called the mini house.
Mhm.
It's a one bedroom with a loft with a laundry and bathroom off of the side of it,
Oh,
with
okay.
just a nice kitchen. But it's very spacious, it's very open. You can put skylights in it and just really create a large amount of appeal. That's one aspect because I can build that for $250,000. And there's tons of trailer parks that people can go to, but even those are in such high demand now that that market is kind of ridiculously inflated. And
Right.
you can't go to the bank and get a loan against the real property like you
Right.
can with a home. So what we're
Right.
building in the mini house is something that you can put on any property and it's real. You can't live in it forever. It's one bedroom, but it gets these younger families to be a part of the market and they can rise with the market and just keep their head above water so that when they have two kids and they're able to go into the next home 5, 10 years later, they're able to do so. So that's
Yeah.
one piece that we're really excited about.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing is we just build standard 3 bed, 2 bath homes, but we put an attic truss in the top. And
Uh-huh.
what that enables people to do is down the road, if they buy this thing at about, we're selling those in the mid 500s, they can then take that and add in the home office like you're talking about. There are
Nice.
a lot of people doing the home office,
Hmm.
but it's also becoming less of a demand, I think, than it was
Right.
because people, I mean, let's be honest, it's really hard to establish trust and community and innovation through a screen. Like you need
Yeah.
that personal interaction, you need the personal tension in the team, the
Oh,
arguing
yeah.
about the best way. Those
Oh,
things are kind of on a resurgence as well, and I think that's for the better.
yeah. Good. Now, on these tiny homes, do people, I don't know, kind of like your mother-in-law suite? I mean, do people want them built on their property for maybe they've got a young son or daughter, they just got married and they're trying to get to that next level of living where they actually have two bedrooms? Are you building them on existing property that already has a home?
Yes, that's a good point that I failed to mention is yeah, these are turnkey. We can build them for under 900 square feet is what our requirements are locally. If it's 900 square feet or half the size of the home, will qualify as an accessory dwelling unit and you can add that to your property as passive income. You can rent it out, you can Airbnb it, you can make that your home office, whatever you want to do. It's a great
Nice.
option that most people in most locations can take advantage of.
That is great. It's hot, right? I mean, I imagine people are quite interested in that.
Yes, it's a big piece of what we focus on. I'm a high-end custom home builder. That's my primary focus. But, again, the fireman in me is completely unsuppressible. I look for all of the problems that pour in and I find the guy that can handle it. And we then service that as well. So we have a handyman one-man division that takes care of some of our higher-end sororities and fraternities in our college town will really do anything if I have the right guy for it.
And I think it's such a great thing. I mean, it's nice to build these beautiful, big luxury homes, and that's nice, but there's a big swath of the population that can't afford housing and to have their own place. I think that's it's great that you're involved in that. Is it real popular where you are, the tiny home game?
So tiny homes are great. There's kind of I mean, just like everything in the market, as you increase the number of tiny homes, you increase in your impossibility of where to put them. So for example, if I buy a tiny home today, I got to go to an RV park to put it up to utilities and septic. So, my next stage that I have to get to from there is I have to buy a piece of property,
Right.
I have to put a well on it, I have to put a septic, and I have to put power on it. And then I got to get my tiny home on it. And so to do that, I got to get a loan against just the land,
Right.
which is a land loan, which is a higher percentage rate. And that means I also have to find a way to finance all of those other infrastructure needs. So it's a really huge jump. That's the problem with the tiny home, is it's not real property planted on the land.
Right.
So this mini house, as we would call it, it's a little bit bigger than a tiny home. I don't want to call the tiny home thing a fad, but it's just unrealistic. Like, you can't have a baby and live in that, and you definitely can't have a second kid, and you can't add on to it.
Right.
So the mini house is a realistic middle of the road adaptation that services the fact that we need economy. We got to give these young couples a foothold
and some privacy, possibly, than being in the main house,
and a reasonable quality of life, but also you can add on to it. I mean, this is how your grandparents, great grandparents built. If around World War II, we knew how to build what we could afford.
Right.
I'm not building much different than that. This is kind of just a reclaiming of what we've kind of lost with our excess and affluence.
I have a client in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and I'm out there and we're driving around and we're noticing all these houses. They're mostly like cinder block style homes, but they all had this flat roof. And I said, that's odd, there's this flat roof. And he says, well, because we build homes in stages. So we build one level, they might live there for 3 or 4 years, and then we built it with the idea we could put another level on top of it. I said, really? And he goes, oh, see that one over there? That took about 15 years to get to that point, and they just keep pocket money away. And then it's like, okay, now we'll do the next thing. It's, construction has a lot of creativity to that. I mean, absolutely a ton of creativity. Now, in terms of your customer base right now is all over the map, from somebody wants something small to somebody who wants something big. How do you find these people, or do they find you? I mean, how do you get your word out? I know you do a lot on social, but any kind of other marketing that you're doing?
Yeah, it's really to social media. So I'm telling my story. I tell who I am. People buy from people. So
That's right.
I'm Brad Covington. I own Forged Construction, and I tell people what I believe, what I'm up to, and I tell people about my people. That's the means by which I build the trust with the customer.
Right.
And the clientele that I bring in. There's a lot of people that would not hire me because they just hate what I believe. But the people that do show up, I'm not necessarily casting a broad net like I'm selling toothpaste. I'm not just trying to get absolutely every single person in the market. I'm just trying to get the people. I'm drilling for oil. I'm really looking for the people that are strongly eager to work for me and work with me. That brings up my biggest point, is like, when you tell people who you are and what you believe when you do business, the best thing about it is all of the people that agree with you, they show up and they want to work with you, both as a customer and as an employee.
That's right.
So my willingness to put myself out there and tell my story, number one, I get probably 60 to 70 applications for employees a year that I can just save and pull from as we continue to grow. So we can get some top tier talent that way. And then also too, the customers that show up are just really excited to work with us. And they're strong customers that are very collaborative.
Very good. I think it's like you putting your values out, making it known. It'll resonate with people. It may not resonate with others, but people who share your values think the same way or similar to you. And even as customers or staff, it's like there's a point of agreement that we all have, right? And like I worked with a lot of different types of people, but over the years, and I have a very one simple philosophy is I just won't work with anybody I don't like. And I would expect that to be a mutual thing. But when you find that people, even before you meet them, if you know you have shared values, you have a pretty good probability you're going to like that guy, or gal, right? You're going to be able to mesh with, communicate with, and share those things that you have in common. And so, I mean, I think that's, it's an interesting thing about integrity. It's like, when you get tarnish on it, it's hard to get it off, right? So, you have to, believe in what you believe in and hold it firm, hold it close. And you get people who go, you know what, that's pretty bold. I wish I could be that bold or whatever, but they could admire that. And then there'll also be people that wouldn't. So, okay, well, you can't win them all. In your mind, tell me, does it create what you believe better customers?
Yeah, there's a very strong sense in which we're creating a team. When I build
Right.
a house, I'm creating a partnership with the husband. He's got his desires. They're totally different than the wife's desires.
Right.
And they're teaming up together as husband and wife to build a thing. And I have to create a collaboration with both of them and my crews to all give them something that they want. So yeah, there's a huge need to create cohesiveness at the outset, right?
Mm-hmm.
To disappoint them early and tell them they can't afford it so
Mm-hmm.
that once we wind this project up, all our selections are decided, all our expectations are made, we wind this thing up and turn it loose and everything just can go seamlessly. That's my dream, right? That's the system that I'm always pursuing. And there's
Right.
always little things, but I'd love for all of the change orders to happen pre-construction,
Mm-hmm.
not in the middle when it's a surprise. The visualizations and understandings with the wife, who has just this particular desire with her
Mm-hmm.
kitchen. I want all
Yeah.
that stuff out
Yeah.
there at the
Yeah.
beginning. I don't
Sure.
want to trap them with change orders, which is a common model, right?
Yeah, it
Bid it
is.
low, and then you start bidding it, and they're like, "Gosh, I don't still like that," and you're like, "Yeah, I knew you wouldn't. Here's a change order."
Right.
That's a very common building practice. I find it immoral, and I'm totally happy to build what people want.
Seen that. I've seen
As
that.
long as it's quality and it has a certain measure of nicety to it that fits my brand. But that's my goal anytime I start a partnership with a client.
That's very good. I spend a fair amount of time in private equity and acquiring businesses, and sometimes we'll have to work with a broker. And so I'll have a broker who will come in and he had to have a broker come in and he reaches out to these would-be guys that might want to sell their business and say it's worth, bazillion dollars, right? And then another guy says fairly, it's worth 2 million. This guy says it's worth 5 million. Well, which one are you going to work with? You're going to work with a broker who says 5 million. I think I can get 5 million for you. You sign on, he reaches out, comes back, goes, best I can do is 2 million. Like, I've already checked it everywhere. I'm really surprised. And the guy goes, oh, I guess I'll do 2 million. But he lied and he got the client. And I wouldn't be very surprised that construction does that too. So it's nice that you bring that up overtly, mention it. I guess you share that whenever you're having some kind of a discussion with a would-be client, a would-be client. You're having a discussion about, look, we try to keep our change orders to a minimum. We want to get all the data out. We want to make sure we're delivering exactly what you needed and wanted, and stand behind it. So do you take a fair amount of time when it comes to getting all those questions answered?
We try to get them into a contract that's a design contract by which they have essentially funded us all of the time that we need to design their project, talk through everything, and we'll then give them a proposal at the end of it that we tracked our time. Whatever time they didn't use, we can apply to their project. But we have the strong incentive for them to stay with us, and we also have our time very well covered so that we can just feel at ease, or our project managers feel at ease to take the time necessary to create good expectations, create a good model that we're going to wind up and turn loose, and that everybody just doesn't feel pressure because, okay, I've spent my design deposit, I might as well get my full use of it.
Yeah.
Both parties are incentivized to maximize the communication during that phase.
Smart.
And the biggest thing that we're expressing to them is we are a Christian construction company. And so, I mean, back to what you just talked about, my biggest goal is for us to all decide on what is true. Doesn't matter what I feel they want, and it doesn't matter what they feel it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is what's on paper, what is true, and what are we agreeing to go do, and all of us abiding by that.
Very good. Very strong. So now we're kind of dancing around a little bit on this one point, and it's not like you think you're dancing. I think I'm dancing. But if I was, say, wanting your company to work with me, what is the process? How do I go about that if I was going to work with you?
So
But
we have,
I'm in Florida. I'm not in Idaho, so I'm just saying theoretically.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
so the first thing that we have is we have phone, we have email, and we have social media. So all of those dump into as seamlessly as possible into my Builder Trend software. So I use Builder Trend, it's very common residential
Mhm.
construction software, and our website is really the most efficient way that people reach out to us because they fill out that form to get us to contact them, and they put all of their information in, which saves me the data entry. So that's really where I try to push people.
Right.
However, a lot of people don't, well, they want some more personal interaction.
Yeah, they
So
want a conversation.
a lot of times they'll just call the phone number. So the phone number for me is my personal cell phone, which, that worked for a long time. And at some point we will scale to the point that I don't have the ability to handle that. Currently, what I use is AI voice assistant software on my personal cell phone. I use M1.
Mhm.
It's got all of my data from ChatGPT uploaded into it so that it can answer questions for clients. It asks them about their project, and then it submits to me an AI summary of that conversation. So then I take that phone call and I look at it, and a lot of times I will then call the customer back and I'll
Mhm.
have received all of their information. I know about
Right.
their project, but now I'll then create a personal interaction as the owner of like, yeah, we'd really love to hear more about it. And then I'll set them up with a calendar item to come in and talk to a project manager. So at that point, I have fully delegated the client. I probably don't spend more than about 5 to 10 minutes per client
It's a
lead.
great touch point, though, to be
Yep.
able to do that.
Yep. I really like to establish that voice personal relationship initially. Then they're delegated to a project manager who's going to take it from there and create the proposal and conduct the work from there on out. And I'll introduce them to them. I'll say, this is Marshall or this is Nate. He's going to manage your project. And that's it. That's my involvement. But everything else is talking to people like you and creating relationships with other contractors. We have a lot of sub trades that are in-house at this point, a lot of carpentry, excavation, and some others that just allow us to help other contractors as well as
Sure.
our own clients.
Very good. Now, you seem like a driven fella. And so do you have any cool little, I don't know, 2-year, 5-year goals that you're striving toward?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like if you'd have asked me to create a 5-year plan 5 years ago, it would not involve where I'm at now. So I do have a 5-year plan. I look at it and I smile because I just don't know. But our goal is to double in size every 3 years. So that's right now I'm a $6 million construction company. And so 3 years from now, we want to be a $12 million construction company. But realistically, I'm projecting that to happen in about a year to 2 years. So
Right.
the biggest thing that I am active at is getting in documentation all of our systems, all of our processes. How does a guy go to the dump and how do we bill for it? Like just stuff like that. Contractors are running with their head down in general. And so me being willing to pull back and detach from the line and create those processes are the means by which I then create another division of Forged Construction in another town with a guy that I trust.
That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
that's my goal, is to then franchise Forged Construction to the next location. We will build in a very broad area just because we do higher end clients. So it's the traveling is a expectation for those that want to hire us. But ultimately, we will need to create more local franchise
Yeah.
locations in other cities. So that's
Yeah.
my plan to address right now.
Good. It's a smart plan, right? One of the things that you'll see in any business, right? In any business, the guys that really scale are the guys that get their systems down, or strong operations people have standards of which these types of things are handled, location to location, city to city, state to state, within whatever the municipality or various laws are, right? Those are the guys that scale. And the guy that you have that foundation, that you have that paramilitary kind of attitude and getting people to kind of rise up. I could see you can get guys to rise up to a point like, hey, could there be a game where we could do a thing over in whatever? And they've grown into that. Like I have a client in the Detroit area, and he's a physical therapy business. He's got just around Detroit, I think he's got like 45 offices, right? But he just takes his team and he keeps elevating his team and he lifts them up. And then eventually you have guys that are kind of similar minded and know the systems. And then the guy says, I want to partner in something or create something. It's not franchised, but they'll partner into something. So you build something on a strong foundation, and a strong foundation is good operational strategy. So that's ticking off all the boxes from my point of view.
Yeah, well, it just comes down to, I think the biggest disconnect for a lot of business owners is the philosophy for why they do business. As a Christian, I've been given something free and I've been asked to go turn a profit on it and become something with it. And so that infects what I do with my people. I say, hey, here's some free trust. Go make yourself more valuable. And if you make yourself more valuable, I can give you more value. It can if you're more trustworthy, I can give you more things to be trustworthy with. Every business owner is a capitalist, and we do this with dollars. We totally get it, right? Like I'm trying to accrue as many dollars as I can as a business owner. Fundamental, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that can certainly misguide people.
It
right?
can.
You turn that into your idol and worship it, well, it'll destroy you. You'll destroy your business. You'll destroy your family. You'll destroy what you had that was good. Happens all the time. Yeah. If I'm going to give people the trust that I've been given and I'm going to raise them up as something that can increase, they will become worthy of it, and our business will grow with us all pulling in the same direction.
That's right. It's absolutely right. In the world today, it just takes more money to make it. It's just unfortunate. It's just that's the way the machine is built, so to speak, when it just takes more fuel, and everybody who works for you, their cost of living went up just like yours, right? So I always kind of look at, like, when you're building something, it's like maybe it's your survival, your family's survival, your staff's survival, their family's survival, the community's survival, and it begins to reach out from there, right? And if when you get people, it's like my survival, my family's survival, just my survival, my family's survival, they just don't grow. You can't build an organization, a successful organization with one guy or husband and wife, or you've got to bring the group in. And from the very beginning of this conversation, that's what you've been doing. And no wonder you've grown so well since 2021 being involved in this. I mean, you certainly were geared towards it. You built your life around it. It's kind of like a natural progression for you, it sounds, if that's appropriate for me to say. Where do you see as the biggest barrier that you might run into to getting to that next level of expansion?
Probably pride. When it goes back to the beginning, it's like you're saying, I have been given all of these things, and so then I turn around and freely give it to my people. That's the measure of success right there, is your willingness to lay your life down for everyone else. And so the moment that I decide to quit trying to accrue as much for my people and not give it away to them, whether it's trust or whether it's paying them a wage worthy of what they are, whether that's just creating a desire to distrust them because I don't want to use that muscle anymore. It's hard. Employees are very difficult. They make mistakes. You have to pay for them. They say things that they shouldn't say, that I wouldn't say. They cause problems that I wouldn't, in my selfish pride, would say I wouldn't do that.
Right.
That's all employees do, is they force you to die to yourself every day. And my weariness in doing that would be the thing that would destroy us.
I got you. I think there's something too, like when you're growing something and you're becoming more affluent, successful, profitable, whatever you want to call it, and then you want to be able to bring and lift the team up with you. I see this a lot in working with businesses where, they'll have a staff that's been there a long time. They're making crazy good money, but yet they don't have that drive that they used to have, but they're never going to quit. I talked to somebody, a business owner yesterday, or the day before, says, our average guy has been with us. Well, our average, I work a lot in healthcare. Our average clinician is about 13 years. We have 9 to 20 year employees. And it's like and not a very efficient business, not very productive business. They're all at the top of their pay scale, and he's wondering why he ain't making it anymore. And so, you can become very successful and create on the other side of that coin, right? You can give people so much that, it's almost like it breeds a wild degree of criminality. They got something that they didn't exchange for. But as long as you keep all those things in check, great. The guy's making great money. He's doing super well with you, and he's doing things to expand areas of his life, not just him, not just his family, but he's able to reach out and to contribute more in the community or whatever that might be, right? And that guy, great. Take them all the way with you, right? So that's sometimes the challenge when you build a business that becomes very successful and you want to kind of spread the wealth that you don't. It's kind of like the like the silver spoon children or something like that, right? And they get in, at least all TV shows, right? They get in trouble. They do all these different things, and because they've never had to earn it. So as long as they're earning it, I think it could be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to have an opportunity with that guy that ran that business, I would ask him how much he has changed. How much have you yourself personally innovated how you personally do things?
That's right.
Setting that example, constantly seizing upon the ability to orient yourself to what you're doing and how the situation around you is changing, making a very fast decision about what you need to do differently or the same, and acting upon it and getting it done, and doing that over and over and over and over and over endlessly is where people fail. And so that's what I just described is known in the military as the OODA loop. This is the means by which the military continues to grow in its effectiveness. This is the means by which firefighters do the work that they do in the fire service. It's constantly changing. Sometimes we're even digging up old ways of doing things because we found out 20 years later that it was just more effective. And the science kind of just misled us because they wanted to sell us more expensive nozzles or something like that. That is imperative on every business owner to be finding what they need to personally change.
That's right.
And if an owner is doing that, then the people below him will be changing as well. I think in business, you're either growing or you're done. And so it's that simple. Yeah, if there's no new, fresh talent at the bottom, you're going to die. You have to.
Absolutely. And it's like, you're pointing at one, you got three fingers pointing back. And if you can be aware of that, whenever I talk to somebody that's like them, like he's usually an impossible guy to work with because he thinks the problem is over there, but he hired every one of them and he trained every one of them and he laid down the expectation with every one of them. And what he got back, he created. And
even more so, I'll bet you if he was to go to his team and ask them how to fix it, maybe they'd have some ideas.
That's right.
I know here's a blue collar story that'll just, I really think about all the time. One of my brother-in-law, he worked for a company where they move ginormous things. They'll build a bridge right next to the other bridge, and then overnight they come in and they put the new bridge in place. And specifically, this project that he was working on had to do with a nuclear reactor, and they were moving an insanely heavy piece.
Yeah.
They dropped it. On paper, it looked good. The engineers signed off on everything. It was a great plan and nobody had a problem with it except for the boots on the ground. The salty superintendent that was there was just had a sixth sense feeling that this was just not an adequate plan. And that's a breakdown in a team. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just the blue collar wisdom from the University of Reality.
Yeah.
People need to always take advantage of communication up and down the chain. And they need to also take advantage of that OODA loop. Be always orienting yourself and making better decisions and acting on them and quit talking so much.
That's smart. That's so smart. You really, when you have something like that, you really have a team. Kind of think of you're going to war, right? You really have a team. As a firefighter, if you don't have a team, you could be in trouble. Someone's protecting you who isn't capable of doing so, right? And so you've done a fantastic job, Brad, building a team. You've got bigger games that you're looking at down the road that could bring your team even higher up and allow them to do better in life as well as yourself and your wife, Nicole, and family. And I think that, going forward, I wish you a tremendous amount of success with what you're doing. But if someone wanted to reach you, that's usually where people come in at the end, what's the thing at the end? If someone wanted to reach you and possibly have some work done with you, why don't you give me the details again of how they can find you?
Yeah, so my website is forgedconstruction.work, WORK, work. And my phone number is 208-669-1040. You can call me there. I'm on a bunch of the socials. You can see what we're up to. You can learn about my people. A lot of times people call me because they're like, hey, I really liked that guy.
Yeah.
And how do I get him to go build my deck? Those are the ways that they can call me and get a hold of me and get in touch with us. And also I get a lot of people at this point just asking how to implement the same things that we are implementing. I welcome those calls as well. I love these conversations. I like preaching the gospel of what I'm up to and what's been done to me in the wonderful world that God's given me to work in. And I love just praising my people, anybody that wants to hear about them and talk about it.
Very good. Brad, thank you so much for being on today's podcast, and I wish you nothing but success.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Appreciate the conversation.
You bet.